The next one we have is town of Schererville, Eagle Ridge culvert replacement. I won't call him Larry, it's Neil, so.
I've been called worse, Dan, but thank you.
I'm sorry. So Neil from Nice is gonna give you your presentation, and you know what, I think I have it on. You gave me the thumb drive so I can put it up on the board, right? Sorry. Let's see.
There's no lectern, so you want me to stand up or sit down? What's your pleasure? Okay. Thank you for considering our application this evening. I'm Neil Simstead with East Engineering. I'm here with Jim Gorman, town manager of Schererville. And we have before you the Eagle Ridge culvert replacement. And that is directly west of US 41 near the Schererville post office and the Showplace movie theater north of Deer Creek Drive. The application before you is for the replacement of, again, as you had mentioned, a corrugated metal pipe that was installed about 40 years ago and replacing that with a reinforced concrete box culvert 10 feet wide by 7 feet high. The beginning of this analysis that we found ourselves in was the town of Schererville started a GIS program a few years back, and they've so far collected about 20,000 points on all their water, sanitary, storm sewer, disco electric, gas, pipelines, and part of that was large diameter culverts for inspection. In addition to the work that they do as part of their MS4 for the 12-inch and larger and the 12-inch and smaller inspections of those culverts and discharges into the regulated drains and within the town's storm sewer system. The pipelines, if you look at the design plans towards the back, there are several pipelines and we coordinate with all those operators and they've approved our plan as proposed to replace this culvert through the area of the town's right. The culvert sizing, we worked with Tom Burke on that and coordinated with the Lake County Surveyor's Office to confirm that our proposed sizing of that culvert being that 10 by 7 is consistent with what they modeled hydraulically on the system as if they have obviously the most experience working for the Surveyor's Office. The drainage area for this is not only the discharge of the Schererville wastewater plant, which covers the general 1/3 south of this area of the entirety of the town of Schererville. And then we also understand that working with Dan and coming to you before with detention projects that were requested on a higher level in terms of percentage of requested participation, that this project we're requesting 50% rather than your typical 80% that you may consider on a detention project. So what we look at is if there is a failure in this culvert, there is 50 businesses directly impacted by this culvert area and it's discharged down to the Dyer Ditch and ultimately to the locale. And we look at also that it'll cover the entirety of the area of the US 30 and 41 corridor for potential flooding issues. The design and the bidding of this project has been funded by the town of Schererville. We are not requesting any funds for that portion of this work. And based on that 50% construction cost request, I have some unfortunate news that the application we have in front of you was $331,500, and we just opened bids. And actually, our request is only going to be $222,000 based on a better than expected bid. Results, yeah, absolutely.
No change orders, you know that, right, Neil?
Provided you have no further questions, absolutely. And the cost was $445,945, and that was GE Marshall out of Valparaiso. As you guys well know, it is almost unheard of to have a bid come in over under the engineer's estimate cost. So we're quite pleased with the results of that bid. In terms of the recreational benefits that once this project's completed, the town of Schererville will construct about a 3,000-foot path from essentially the south and west side of town along Eagle Ridge Drive, and that'll connect up to the Pensy Greenway Trail, which right now and currently dead ends at Eagle Ridge Drive and let's call it 213 near the river tracks. So that's what we have for our presentation. We have the information, the application, the condition that we have in there, the confirmation of the sizing of the culvert, and the plans that, as I mentioned, that have been out to bid and are awarded. And we are working with the contractor right now to process those contract documents, and I am open for any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for this young man?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Getting all my presentations mixed up. You said this was built 40 years ago, is that?
Somewhere in that general range, yes.
And then I think I also heard that this effectively is draining the stormwater treatment plant.
Yeah, it's the discharge of the
Discharge.
Schererville wastewater plant, but it's also about a third of the town.
Oh, okay, a third of the town and the plant.
And both, yes.
And it goes to Hart Ditch.
Yeah, eventually it goes to Dyer Ditch through the T-Wolf Preserve, connects with the Dyer Ditch, and then ultimately goes north.
What's the useful life of the proposed?
For the reinforced concrete pipe, 100 years.
Then Mr. Burgess said the standard life for the corrugated one is 75 years, so we got half of it. We'll all be dead by 50 years from now.
Well, and that may be the big.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Give me 50. You don't want mine sticking out, like.
So everything out of the stormwater plant, this is kind of cool, that wastewater plant goes underground, under the boulevard, and then this is where it vacates, right at the, where all the retail is,
Yes,
and
Yeah,
the Aldi's.
directly north and west of Allen's.
Can we do a work ban right here in this big, retention area? Or detention? No?
I think somebody asked for.
Well, Tebow's Pond was asked for,
Preserve,
but
There's this ditch and.
It's still out there.
Wetlands, and then it goes into Briar. Then it connects to where we're doing that study.
Correct.
Then water flows downhill.
That I can guarantee if nothing is.
So at the end of the day, the culvert's busted, it needs to be replaced. Those are-
You're absolutely correct.
And all of is all of this area along the boulevard, how far south, Neil? Drains stormwater through the path I just followed.
Everything south up until you get to, let's call it 77th Avenue. Which is where the speedway's at and CVS.
Right.
Wow.
How long is it gonna take to do the job?
We have 120 days in the contract, and that starts from the notice to proceed date, which is when the contractor can confirm that material is being delivered. As we all know, the supply chain issues. When we had looked at this project last year, just initially going through our GIS program and doing a townwide research and investigation on these culverts, the large diameter ones only, of course. The biggest issue was the delay on steel costs, not necessarily concrete, which is available but at a higher cost. The steel, because this is the H20S loaded rating on the culvert, and the steel was a challenge at that point. And
Just rebar steel?
yes, yeah, it's
Wow.
fascinating. I've never seen a construction market like this, and I've been at my company since '95, so it's unique to be sure. But we do expect to have this project completed prior to the end of this construction season, so that the town can independently do their road work on top of this, and then add the trail connection that I mentioned earlier from this intersection all the way to the north at the Pensy Creek.
How many more of these types of corrugated culverts from 40, 50 years ago are fatal?
We've seen this one and a couple minor ones that can be repaired. The work as part of the GIS that I mentioned earlier, there's a few more that are left to be done. and talking with Dan and making a very good point. The last thing we want to do is be in front of you every 6 months. So what we want to do is get your consideration on this one, come back with our complete survey, and then meet with Dan on a staff level before we would even, in the next year or two, consider coming back to you and having any of those projects included in the updates to your master plan.
Outstanding. So Dan, this would be a kind of location that wouldn't show up in one of the studies that we did because it's a feeder.
Right.
It's outside, is it
So we
outside?
don't know because we haven't looked at, we only looked at the primary feeds and it's whatever states.
I mean, it's so far-
Small things that are in the municipality, they're all full of
This is
stuff.
like the very
Probably look at it
southwest
past.
edge of the watershed, right? Is
Uh,
that right?
it's not super far. No, it's because this
No,
is,
further north, that's
yeah, it still goes south.
Yeah.
I mean, we could tell the story about when they were cleaning the big tanks off of what Kennedy and what is that Avenue
Avenue
H, when they were clearing it out, they put too much dye in the water. The water came down, hard ditch, it was blue as like a tidy bowl, man, was coming down. And so we got all kinds of calls for that one. So it goes all the way almost to the fire station, but that's where Turkey Creek sort of runs the other way, and this one is coming north.
I knew when we did one study where maybe when we were talking with Westler, like the southwest edge, like part of it goes north and some of
Yeah.
it goes towards Kankakee or something.
That's Beaver Dam.
Okay, yeah.
All right, any other questions for this young man on this project? Another culvert replacement. I think we're gonna start seeing those.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.